tonight we're going to try to use up some of that excess squash you are getting out of your garden. This is summer squash and chicken bake. The recipe was written for beef. I've changed it to chicken and changed a couple other things that I'm hoping are going to work to save the points, because this is going to be a high point. Believe it or not, with ground chicken and squash, it was still going to be a high point meal. And so I got it down to 7 points, I believe. I thought it was 8, but it's 7. So you need 1 onion, and I'm going to chop that. You don't need to see that. 1.5 pounds of squash, and this is 1.25 pounds. I wasn't going to play round and round with squash, so that's going to be enough, but that's about the size you want. You can see the size in my hand. So I am going to show you how I think I want to cut this squash, because it cooks in the pan with the chicken and the onions, and I'm not so sure how it's gonna, if it's too big. This is, I'm trying to say is, I want to make sure it cooks. So I've cut it into 3s, and then there, my oven's preheated to 350. I think this is as big as I want it. The picture of it shows like bigger chunks of squash, but you can't always go by the pictures of recipes, because they do them to look pretty. I've got to do it to cook right. So this is the size I'm cutting it in. So let me get all of this chopped up, and then we'll put it together over here. Okay, I have the pan preheating over here on the side. I just want you to see how much squash this made. That looks like it's way too much squash, but I'm going by the recipe. So I just want you to know, if you get a lot of squash, that is what the recipe calls for. So now let's slide over here just a minute. Okay, we want to add, because that chicken breast is really dry. So we want to add our 1 pound of ground chicken breast. Good, my pan wasn't too hot. I'm going to break it up a little bit before I put the squash in here. Then we will put all of our squash and onions. Well, now that it's in the pan, that really isn't too much. Maybe it's more of a squash dish with chicken added instead of the other way around. That makes sense. Then for seasoning, we have 3/4 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of pepper, and 1/4 teaspoon of dried thyme. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stir this around and let this cook until the chicken is done and the squash is tender. I'll try to remember how long that took, because I'm just one of these people. How long do you cook it? Till it's done. That's my that's my answer. It drives David insane. Okay, I am also skipping another step. I decided it knocks off 2 points. At this point, you're supposed to add some dry breadcrumbs, and that gives it 2 points. And I'm thinking, well, I don't understand why, if it would add to the texture of the casserole or not. And then this was full of liquid, and I thought, well, maybe it's to soak up the liquid. Well, I just decided to crank the burner on high and evaporate all the liquid out. So that's how I think I'm going to get around those extra points worth of breadcrumbs. And I don't think it's going to mess with the flavor. So we just want to put this in a sprayed 11 by 7 inch casserole dish, and then just set it aside while we make our sauce. And the sauce is going to be the part that I don't know if it's going to work or not, so hang on. Oh, I meant to tell you, that took 15 minutes to cook that down and get it tender and get the chicken done and everything. So now we're going to cook 2 cups of milk. The recipe say, oh, get that too hot already? We got to make sure. Let me get my whisk. Hold on. we got to make sure we don't scorch this milk, and that's where I might have trouble. The recipe calls for, I'm putting in a 1/4 teaspoon of salt to make a roux with a 1/2 stick of butter and 1/4 cup of flour. Well, that's a lot of points. And I'm thinking, I've got this Wondra. Let me get it. Hold on. I've got this Wondra in my cabinet, instant flour. Well, it says quick mixing flour. I just call it instant flour. You don't have to have a roux. You can thicken any kind of sauce with this that you would thicken with flour or cornstarch. So I am going to try to thicken just plain milk. I've never tried this before. I have thickened gravies that didn't get thick enough while I was cooking them, but I've never tried to just thicken a pot of plain milk. So I'm just going to get this milk up to the simmer at least, and I'm going to measure out. I'm going to measure out a 1/4 cup of this flour. If you don't have the Wonder, if you want to spend the points, 1/4 cup of butter melted, 1/4 cup of flour, whisk it until it's good and smooth, gradually add in your milk and stir it until it's thickened, just like a regular gravy or white sauce, whatever you want to call it. So let me measure this out without hopefully burning. Now I'm just going to add it in. This milk's coming up quickly because I got it too high, I think. Okay, I'm just going to, well, let me hold this. Sprinkle it, not in a big lump, just kind of act like it's in a shaker if you can. I don't know if I can or not. Come on, I'm scared to dump it. And whisk that around. I could shake it straight out of the can, the box, but then I wouldn't know how much to tell you to use. This gives us more of an idea. Okay, let's go a little more. Woo! Got heavy-handed. Let's get it whisked. It don't normally clump, but because I'm filming, it will. That's my luck. Got to turn this down. I'm gonna burn this stuff up. Every time I try to make pudding, I burn it. Do y'all ever burn your milk? It's so hot in here, I don't know why I chose to bake something. I think I got stuff to bake the rest of the week, and we're supposed to have like 105 heat index, and the humidity that goes with it, too much. I would have my fan on me right now, but you wouldn't be able to hear me talk. Okay, let's go some more. Ooh, heavy-handed, heavy-handed. Now, I guess you could thicken it with cornstarch and milk, but this flour does give it a different texture. It gives it I don't know how to describe it. It just gives it a different texture. I think we're starting to feel a little bit. Hold on. Okay, that was Alexa for me to go wake up David, so I've got to set this off the burner and go wake him up and come back. Okay. It's going to take this whole, it's starting to thicken a little bit, but not as much as we need it. So it's going to take this whole quarter cup. I'm just going to go ahead and add the rest of it. I'm going to be brave and just dump it in there and go for it. I think that's what we needed right there. Now, it is not as thick as with a roux, but it did thicken that milk. If you can see, well, there's a lot of foam on there, but I can see some little giblets at the bottom. Let me see if I can get those. It's hard to tell. As I'm whisking, I can tell that it's just a little thicker than it was. I don't want to add any more flour. Not sure how it will affect the flavor. So I'm just going to leave it at a quarter cup. Deal with not having it as thick as the other way for the sake of all those points. I don't think it's going to hurt us. Now what we need to add now is 6 ounces of shredded cheddar cheese. I'm going to turn this down. This is the Food Line reduced fat cheddar cheese. I'm glad I still had some of that, because if I had to use my regular cheese, it was going to take the points up. Oh, see, that's thickening just fine. You see that? That milk got plenty thick enough. Look at that cheese sauce. Looks beautiful. That's a beautiful, shiny sauce. All right, now let's come over here. Okay, here's our casserole, and we're going to pour this over. Oh, doesn't that look beautiful? I'm going to use a spatula because I don't want to miss any. Look at there, it started sticking to the bottom. Started burning to the bottom, but I didn't smell it, so the sauce is not, it smells like beautiful cheese sauce. The recipe also calls for more breadcrumbs on the top, but personally, I don't think it needs it, even if I wasn't trying to save points. I think this will be just fine. So we just want to bake this for about 35 minutes or until it starts to get golden brown on the top. So it dawned on me after I put it in there and quit filming, it's not going to get golden brown on top because we didn't use the breadcrumbs. I guess the breadcrumbs is the part that would get golden brown. I think this looks delicious. This is a 6-serving main dish. I'm going to scoop some out. I'm going to let it cool enough to taste. Oh, I think this is going to be really good. Okay, you can see just a little bit of the liquid came out in the bottom, but I don't want it that's hot. Not too much to hurt the casserole. So let me get just enough of this to cool off, and I'll tell you what I think about it. Okay, I can tell you right now, this is delicious. It's not just good, it's delicious. It's a different take on a squash casserole, I guess you could say. Now you can use any kind of ground meat. You can use beef or turkey or chicken. This is delicious just like this. So this is now, because I left out the breadcrumbs, which I do not miss, and I don't think they would have added anything. I do not miss the butter. I don't think it would have added anything. So this now makes it, for me, 5 points. And this is the serving, that pretty much a sixth, what I can tell. I think that's a decent main dish serving for 5 points. And you have a vegetable in there and your meat. So that will be it for me. There's a good way for you to use up some of your garden bounty. If you try this, I hope you enjoy it. Let me know. So I'll see you on my next video.